In about 3 seconds, we'll be live. Hi, everybody. I believe we're live. It's Laura Eisenhower. I am joined today by such an incredible friend, and there's just like so much to talk about with this individual. Oh, man. I'm going to kind of give a short bio just based from what's coming from the top of my head. Gosh. I mean, we're talking one of the most well-researched individuals I've ever met. He's written about 10 books, probably more since last I talked to him. He's actually publishing my book, and I've done so many conferences with him, and he is a total expeditioner. He goes all over the world, places that most people wouldn't maybe dare to go, like Antarctica. He can tell us a little bit about some of those adventures. But yeah, we're going to talk about escaping Prison Planet. He's written this incredible book. It's right on my bedside. And it's one of the most well-researched books. It's like literally, if a person's starting their awakening process, you're going to want to get a book like this. I mean, I just turned to alternatives 1, 2, and 3. Nobody talks really about this kind of stuff. You've covered it all. You're very thorough, and it's wonderful to have you. And I know you're on an adventure right now, and you're so generous to take the time to be with me. And thanks, Brad, for being here.
Well, Laura, you know, I always like talking to you, whether we're off camera at a backstage at a conference, hanging out, having a beer afterwards. You know, we're good. We're good pals. We've known each other for years now, mainly through the conference circuit, and welcoming you aboard into the publishing realm. We're really looking forward to getting your first and second and third books published with CCC Publishing, who is also Beyond Esoteric publisher and the whole Esoteric series. So always fun to talk with you, Laura, and we got so much to go over the whole concept of Prison Planet, which I know is a subject near and dear to your heart that your audience comes to expect your incredible insights on how we are stuck here in a proverbial way and how we may be able to get ourselves out of this mess.
Right. And especially with all that's coming down, I mean, it's really, really hard to just see all the news and people that haven't been able to understand what we've been dealing with, that have made choices that it's hard not to like be concerned about. I don't ever feel like projecting fear on a situation is going to help it. I always feel like there's hope. But when we look at Prison Planet, I mean, it's been thousands and thousands of years where we've been under sort of this covert rulership of a deep state dark cabal that people are now getting familiar with. And it's been there a long time. Now it's getting real obvious. What are your thoughts? Like, how are you navigating the times with the kind of books that you've written, with the kind of knowledge that you hold? You know, is this, I mean, like, how are you kind of like processing it? Do you feel like, oh, well, all these solutions are coming in, or like, okay, wow, it's too bad more people didn't get red pilled?
And they're waking up. Well, it's happening though, and you can see it, and I can see it too. There are just more and more people that are coming to the understanding that it's not individual governments, but it's this globalist agenda. And the true definition of fascism, and the first section of Beyond Esoteric starts out with the new fascism, neo-fascism. The true definition is when government takes control of corporations, as they did in World War II. If you remember, we learned Mussolini even coined the term and popularized it. He was government head official who seized all the big corporations. So did Nazi Germany. That's the classic form of fascism. Now it's actually flipped around. So those heads of corporations control governments. And this is the mess we find ourselves in, because these are all unelected officials, the moneyed elite that basically have gamed the system with their ill-gotten gains, and now they're working on a depopulation agenda, and they really don't care about us. So how did they get into this position, and how do we get them out? That's the real escape from Prison Planet, the way I see it.
Absolutely. I mean, they are captors and controllers, and they've mastered psychological operations and indoctrination programs in our school systems, and really just kind of like grooming the human to be able to accept these false narratives that people are consenting to. So the consent is probably like part of that imprisonment, because people don't maybe realize they're in prison, which is the problem. Whereas folks like us understand that that's what's really going on, but yet we're sovereign. So I don't feel like people like those that have been able to wake up or be claiming of their sovereignty are like imprisoned. So talk to us kind of like about that, about these kind of facades and the psyops where people are consenting.
Right. And we have been hammered, not only our entire lives, Laura, but even in your great-grandfather's time when he gave the warning of the military-industrial complex getting undue influence in this country, that we've had a lot of indications that there were good leaders out there that tried to warn us. But ever since JFK, it's been pretty clear, like the Bill Hicks comedy routine, they get a new president, and they sit him down in a smoky boardroom, and they pull down a screen and start a projector, and it shows the Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen it before. And then when the film's done rolling, the lights go up and say, "Any questions, Mr. President?" He goes, "What agenda do you want me to follow?" So there you go. We have been this government that has been captured by these global elite cabal, Illuminati 200 years ago, whatever you want to call them. These secret societies have been around and have been very influential. Now they have gained the system to the point where they have all the money. In fact, they control the printing press that creates money. So we're up against an opponent that has everything, including the media, in their pocket, bought and paid for, judges that have been appointed, all these Soros and World Economic Forum politicians like Justin Castro Trudeau, who is right out of the mold of what the globalists want in government. Who do you think they take their marching orders from? And this is our true enemy. This is what we all have to come to realize we're up against. And they have all the guns, and they have all the money, and they have all the ways to squash us like a bug. But what they don't have is what John Lennon said, and that is when you fight them with a little sarcasm and humor, and nowadays we have memes, it's the greatest way of showing their hypocrisy and how vulnerable they are, because it's all about controlling the narrative. They have controlled the narrative with an iron fist for really hundreds of years, really since they bought up all the news stations in the last century. And basically now it comes down to 6 corporations that control over 90% of it. So when you're up against these overwhelming odds, first of all, the art of war, you have to learn who your enemy is. If you don't know who they are, believe me, they do not want to be known or seen or brag about their wealth. They'll do anything they can to stay in the shadows, just like a cockroach. But when you put the light on and they go scurrying, then you're over the target pretty well.
Such incredible points. I mean, the laughter thing is really huge because they're really banking on the fear tactics. People make not the best decisions when they're in fear or fight or flight or any kind of anxiety. So like laughing at them. And this is what I've always done, because I was kind of dealing with deep state tactics throughout my life with the Mars recruitment, kind of getting a grip on like, okay, wait a second. I knew that there was something there big time, but wow, now I'm getting kind of a firsthand look. And it was always laughter. It's like, why is she like laughing at it? I mean, they were like really upset that I wasn't afraid. And I know that that's a huge way to kind of break that connection, because ultimately, if we have energetic cords with these individuals or any kind of dependency, it's like staying in a bad relationship you need to divorce, right? Or break up with. So you're talking about, these leaders and everything. Then we got the fact that, deep state Illuminati stuff has multi-generational trauma-based mind control and all these abuses that a lot of individuals are Manchurian candidates. And now using individuals as sort of the guinea pig to understand how to control a whole of humanity to create sort of a hive mind is kind of the scary part of where we're at. And you go into great depth about this. I mean, you're probably one of the best researchers I feel in this field. And that's a kind of scary thing because, we're dealing with individuals that have alters and we don't know who's going to be switched on to all of a sudden play a very different role than what we thought a person is. And not to like overly ramble I think it's a question. When people have that sort of like loyalty, right? Where they're like, oh, that actor, they act like it's their best friend. Like they can never imagine Tom or like any of these individuals could be involved in this. Is this attachment people form because of the Mockingbird media and how Hollywood has been such a huge part of this infiltration as well? So anything you want to say about that? I didn't mean to share so much. But
no, I love it. I love Laura's points for sure. And of course, I have a chapter in Beyond Esoteric about MK Ultra and the mind control programs. And this is also not only a lot of individuals that got sucked into these programs. I used to live just a few blocks away from the Presidio in San Francisco. I know that park like the back of my hand. I did a video for Jimmy Church a number of years ago called The Underground Presidio. And I found that there are 3 levels down, and they were very instrumental in doing a lot of the mind control programs on the West Coast, including dosing everybody with LSD in the 60s. And that was precipitated by the anti-war protests. So the whole idea, and this was an MK Ultra program, a mass psychosis, was to get those protesters just high on sex, drugs, and rock and roll, just anything but protest our war, right? And it was actually quite successful. And you got a lot of bands that came out of the 60s. But interestingly, did you know that Jim Morrison's father, a lot of these big rock stars of the 60s were military family. Admiral Morrison was the admiral in the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the false flag that started the Vietnam War. And his son is Jim Morrison, the Lizard King.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and David Crosby comes out of a military family, and quite a few of them. And the Laurel Canyon in LA was the big hangout, which now we're finding out is connected with tunnels and the Getty Museum and the whole underground there. And that's a whole sordid affair. And you mentioned alternative 1, 2, and 3, and alternative 2 is to go underground, is to hide away from us surface dwellers.
Right. Well, they just completely mess with us. And before I shift gears, I want to talk about sort of the zombie thing that, I mean, we all hear about the zombie apocalypse, the predictive programming in some movies, even though I now avoid, I avoid movies, except every once in a while, just checking out, okay, what are they putting out there? But just to go back to what you're saying about the 60s, I remember I was going to rainbow gatherings when I was 16. I remember this whole dose the kitchen crew. I'm like, wait a second, don't dose me without my permission. And I remember just meeting some characters that were a little bit questionable, but I still appreciated the Grateful Dead and all these different bands. But I was starting to see through it, very often, I'd just be okay, and I went to a lot of Dead shows and a lot of concerts, really. And it's just so funny to see how some of these individuals are the ones that are, I'm leaving Spotify, Joni Mitchell, David Crosby, all these guys, Neil Young. Oh, because of Joe Rogan. It's oh, okay, you guys just exposed yourselves. I mean, I remember working with this woman, a client who was talking about her MK Ultra abuse and that Joni Mitchell was a part of it. And she was in these projects and programs as well. And it's very shocking. It's really hard because when you hear the lyrics and you connect with the musician, I mean, it was life-changing for me as a teenager, just oh my God, I collected vinyl, this and that. So I could go off about that. But, and then we see the Manson stuff. And like you're saying, the CIA sort of the Project Paperclip infiltration of these kind of movements that we're seeing today, which I think the January 6th event was very similar to, where, and I don't want to say anything negative about the T guy or anything about that, but the fact that these people were put into a trap to the point where they're political prisoners, basically, but they're being tortured just because. So it just, maybe that's the opposite of what you're saying. It seems like they're encouraging activism, but yet why doesn't anybody have their back? Why is this not being talked about? So
it's controlled opposition. Clearly.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Exactly. And some people don't accept that. So yeah, talk to us about that. And then let's shift gears into the zombie stuff. But yeah, tell us. Yeah.
Yeah, well, clearly.
If my camera goes off, I'll be right back, but I'm listening.
Okay,
go ahead.
No problem. It's the old journalistic saying, if you can't make sense of a story, follow the money. Where does the money take you? To George Soros and the Open Society Foundation, which is dumping millions of dollars into local, state, judge races, police chiefs, stacking the deck so he has the politicians in his back pocket. It's classic mafia move. This is what the mafia has done for centuries to be able to operate without being shut down by the authorities. They pay them off, they buy them, they put them in those positions. And so this Soros money has just infected not only American politics, but really around the world. And I thought it was so ironic recently that George Soros comes out and said, and Nathan Rothschild, here's two people who we should really listen to and take their opinion, or consider everything they say is the opposite, that they invert everything. And both of them came out and said, oh, this Putin guy and Xi in China and Trump, they are major obstacles to this new order that we propose, and the global democracy, all the words they pepper it up with is, of course, all the opposite. But what that tells me, Laura, is we're right over the target now, that the white hats are making great advances. And this kind of information, when it gets out to the normies, is going to be quite explosive, but it already is. It's starting to get through. And now people, would you believe it, that it took gas prices going up to really get people's attention to see that there is something very, very wrong here. And the economy now, this is a great anecdote on this trip. I started out in Tahoe on a ski trip and made my way to Utah. But when I was in Carson City, Nevada, on my way out here, I was in a diner and this guy reading a book, and we got to talking, and I like questioning people. He's, I'm a inquisitive guy and quite unabashed in asking questions if somebody's going to speak to me intelligently. And so he was saying that he was he was an economist, and he was saying that, I think it was Greenspan, he quoted that 25, 30 years ago, they knew that if gas ever got to over $4 on a national average, that an economic collapse not only is inevitable in 6 months, but is a mathematical certainty. So get ready for the fireworks, folks. And once it goes over $5, there will be a very sizable portion of our population that cannot even go to work anymore. So it's coming, but it's a planned implosion. And I can only hope that we come out of this on the back end with the Quantum Financial Network, with 𝗟𝘂𝗍𝗄 𝗟𝘂𝗍, and all these incredible plans that could free humanity from this parasitic banking empire, because all wars are banker wars. They're behind it all, including what's going on in the Ukraine.
Right. All the world wars, all this kind of stuff. And these hybrid, families, and how it connects into our greater galactic history of how it got to the point that it is now. But it's always kind of been there. Now it's like in everybody's face. And like you said, until it hits home, people aren't going to be able to kind of wake up. And they're going to drop these terminologies. Maybe not all individuals are. Maybe they'll keep making excuses for their captors, right? Like Stockholm syndrome kind of deal.
Yes.
But it's like, until it hits home for people, they're going to go through that period of isolation, feeling ostracized, or, wow, okay, this happened to my child. This happened to my partner, maybe medical tyranny in the hospitals. Once it hits home, it's a whole different story. When it hasn't hit home, it's very easy for people to just kind of hold it at arm's length. And some of us aren't willing to wait till it hits home. We're all about doing the research and understanding this kind of stuff. And we're doing all we can to assist people in this transition. So, when it comes to like the jab, and so I could spend like so long on every subject that we brought up, but I gotta respect your time. I know you're on a trip here. But when we're talking about the jab, the 5G, and all this kind of stuff, where even if a person wakes up to the gas prices, can you imagine what will happen when they wake up to the, oh my gosh, what did I just put in my body? Okay, now it's starting to make sense. Like the greatest thing that I'm afraid of, and I'm not a fear-based person, is my loved ones that made that decision, the feeling that they're going to have, or the guilt of, I can't believe I encouraged my grandchildren or my cousins or family members to do this. Like, how do you think that's going to kind of play out? I know it's a mixed bag. Everybody's processing it differently, but best case scenario of somebody that finds themselves in that position, what do you feel is
alone, Laura.
Like a beneficial outcome without them turning into zombies that we have to shoot between the eyes because they're like
the zombie apocalypse, which I think is still on the CDC website. Quite ironic that they would put that up. I didn't know they were in the business of stand-up comedy, but
right. Well, they have to expose themselves. In order,
it's once again they put things out hidden in plain sight. But it's so funny because the handwriting's been on the wall for a long time, and it's absolutely ridiculous that it's taken this long, of all things, for gas prices to wake up a lot of people. Pedophilia hasn't done it. Biden laptops proving corruption with Ukraine hasn't done it.
I know. Or
Epstein Island didn't do it. Democrats instigating attacks on conservatives or anyone that doesn't agree with them, and the BLM and the Antifa riots, that didn't do it. That
or the naked dude falling out of the Buckingham Palace. Oh no, that's just a scandal. Sorry. All right, keep
Biden
going.
leaving thousands of Americans in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan didn't do it. Nor did the Hillary Clinton leaving America to die in Benghazi. Hillary's illegal and fake Steele dossier used to gain FISA warrants to spy on another candidate's campaign. That didn't do it either, Laura. Big tech and mainstream media censorship of anyone questioning their narrative didn't do it. 2 years of CV with ever-changing advice, anti-science measures that have been proven so by thousands of upright doctors and scientists didn't wake up the masses. 𝗍𝗂𝗋𝗆, I call him, email showing he lied to us about the origin of the Rona and that he knew masks were ineffective didn't do it. 2 bogus impeachments based on proven lies didn't do it. Multiple state legislative hearings documented hundreds of thousands of fraudulent votes in 2020. That didn't do it either. Full denial of thousands upon thousands of military religious exemptions for vaccine mandates didn't do it. Months of encouraging mostly peaceful protests that destroyed cities and livelihoods of many Americans didn't do it. But gas prices is what it has taken to wake people up. The absurdity of that in the face of all other unbelievable atrocities these evil Kabbalist people have been shown to be doing cannot be overstated. And all those things I just listed are going to come right out to the fore. And it's going to be right in people's faces, and those who have had cognitive dissonance and just could not accept any of those things I just mentioned as being true will be the ones who are going to really stay down in that lower resonance. And I know, Laura, that you do speak a lot about how we can raise ourselves and get through this with a peace of mind. And what I like to say regarding Prison Planet, those of us who are going to ascend, that embrace love and compassion and the higher emotions, we're going to start moving up to another dimensional threshold. And that is what I see in our lifetimes. I would love to be a part of this. That prison planet becomes a prism planet. And
become a part of it. You're helping to create it. I mean, you're like one of the greatest eye openers out there. And it's so wild to hear what you're saying about all that, you know, and then also what's going on in Canada, Australia, and the convoys and this and that, and all these. I can't even believe that they get people on these like critical race theory stuff, or you're racist, or they're a terrorist, or and all. I mean, I'm just amazed at the human mind. And I mean, I think it's such a blow to people's ego that trusted the system, but it's like, you still gain skills. You still got an educate, you know, expand it, you know, it's like, get your ego out of the way. We're dealing with now future generations and children that have been masked, have been, you know, dealing with this stuff, and FBI raids on people that were just there at that event on January 6th, you know, and we know like the worst of the worst that could happen, but at the same time, we can mitigate it, like you're talking about, because of this junk DNA that we're going to begin to switch on. And if enough of us are able to do that, I do feel a ripple effect, and it is connected to the planetary grid network. And there is, you know, the consciousness of this planet and so much more than we can imagine. But at the same time, it's wild to see all that. Yeah. And like Cathy O'Brien's book, you know, the MK Ultra victims that have come forward. This is not just like not everybody, but all those that are turning a blind eye are blaming on the whole 17th letter of the alphabet thing. And and that, oh yeah, well, that's all like, oh, that's a conspiracy. But I mean, this stuff was starting to get exposed during Clinton's administration. But I feel the Monica Lewinsky scandal was a way to cover up a book like Cathy O'Brien wrote, you know, and it's just like, and it's amazing because it's an addiction matrix, you know, and we're not just talking about like addiction to maybe drugs or alcohol. Usually the sensitive ones and the empaths are like, just like, I can't deal. It's more the addiction matrix to the false media, to the propaganda, and to the Hollywood stuff, to emulate it or just to sit on your butt and watch it. And just what the chemtrails have done and what is in our food. And now like this next level of attack is horrendous. But I do feel like, And as you know, with the presentations I've done and what I'm expressing very, very much in my book, which is what the whole book is about, awakening the truth frequency. It's like when we hit that different frequency, I feel like our physical body can transmute, alchemize, and begin to remove these foreign substances along with good nutritional allies. And that's everything to make sure that, you know, we're putting the right things in our body. But yeah.
I've got a new saying. What's so funny about the bioterrain, detoxing, and natural immunity? That's what it's always been about. Never about putting foreign substances in our body. There has been a long debate, and I think you might have been at one of the conferences with Robert O. Young, who has been a proponent, and I quote him in the bioterrain chapter of Beyond Esoteric, speaking about how the germ theory, which was put out by Louis Pasteur, was flawed at the get-go, and all pharmaceutical medications, vaccines, everything has been predicated on this flawed theory, that all we really had to do is strengthen our bioterrain and work with and enforce our natural immunity, and things we can make our bodies virtually bulletproof. In fact, there was another scientist named Claude Bernard who challenged Pasteur's germ theory by saying, my bioterrain is so strong. And of course, back in the 19th century, they're still eating farm fresh food and nowhere near the kind of toxic overload that we have today. And Claude Bernard said, I'll prove it to you. My bioterrain is so strong, I will drink a glass of water tainted with cholera. And he did, and did not get sick. So this whole thing about something disguising itself as a flu that we need to put in DNA altering drugs into our body for, people, I hope you see the absolute hypocrisy of what that means when you accept these things. And mind you, it's all been done under our free will. Of course, we've been coerced in many different ways to do it, but
and also threatened,
and threatened with loss of job, livelihood, visitation of family members. I mean, every possible way they could guilt trip us to do it, we did it. But those who haven't, well, maybe that's why we're going to be working together in the future to hasten in the end of this cabal and then bring forth this golden age, which would be the Prism planet with those ascending going to 5D. Those who are still locked down here, that's their choice. You know, that's why we live on this planet of free will, is we're given the opportunities to do this. And this is also why humans have such a blossoming of creativity among us. And as you know, in the Archonic realms, they're quite jealous of us for being creative, for being clear enough to have free will to go off on a ski junket and end up speaking at a conference, whatever. That's just my journey, but we all have that choice. Hey, one thing about the protests on January 6th, remember the guy with the horns, the famous guy? Did you know he was at Disclosure Con with us?
Yes, and I interviewed him.
You met him too. Yeah, I think I remember
was at
seeing
that
him, but I
conference
didn't talk
with you.
to him.
I was next to you.
Oh, wow.
We had a table next to each other.
And now the guy's world famous.
I know. And he's
is he in jail
for 5 years? Yeah,
probably.
He was able to get organic food, and he was thankful for that. But yeah, he has a few names, but the I don't even want to say the letter of the alphabet. It's like, because of all the censorship. But yeah, Jacob.
Yeah.
Jake. And when I met him there, it wasn't the interview that I did with him about the stuff that he was standing up for January 6th. It was about one of the healing products he was selling. And I still have that interview, and it's wild because I'm like, oh my gosh, I know.
Oh,
that's
wow.
that dude.
Post it.
Yeah. I did on Face Smack. I call it Space Smack.
I like that name.
But
that was actually November 2018, because it was only a few weeks before I left for South America and Antarctica on that trip. So I remember it clearly. But
yeah,
yeah, well,
I don't know if that's the one where we had our little Sedona adventure afterwards. I think that was the following year. He wasn't at that one, but no, he wasn't at that one.
Yeah, it was another one.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think we both, or at least I did 2 disclosure cons in Snowflake, Arizona, and I didn't attend the recent one, but yeah, he was there. I totally remember him.
And that was Disclosure Con, which I think was the time we went to Sedona, but the other time was, the other time was the Stargate to Cosmos in Albuquerque, when there were more speakers than attendees, and we just ended up entertaining each other and singing and karaoke.
Doing karaoke.
that was epic.
That was way too much fun, but it was funny because we've been to a lot of conferences together. I think I first met you at the 2011 Contact in the Desert. But yeah, that one in Albuquerque, there'd be 2 people in the audience in a panel of 7 people. And but we all still had so much fun.
I'm gonna make a
prediction.
Wild how
nobody shows up to some of this stuff though, compared to the Super Bowl.
But they will. They will.
They will.
And we were the ones who was speaking this from the mountaintop before it became in vogue. Just like in the same way that David Icke would sleep on people's couches when he came through America 10, 15 years ago and was a virtual unknown. Now he's quite world famous. So I think those who were the freedom fighters or the influencers or those who stuck their neck out, and let's face it, Laura, I know that you've dealt with censorship and different kinds of attacks, and so have I. But this is really small fries in comparison to what humanity is about to experience. And I would even go so far as to say that we have all individually decided to be here for this great show, that we have incarnated in these bodies at the time we have to experience the greatest show in the universe. This is so important. This is so rare that a planet will wake up consciously together collectively, that everybody, including the ET realms, is waiting to see, what are the humans going to do? Are they going to get it together? Are they going to, if say the yoke of this tyranny were removed, what would the human race do if given the opportunity with free will to make the right decisions to restore the garden planet, to bring justice to every person on the world, to level the playing field or even eliminate money? And I have a chapter in my book, Future Esoteric, called The End of Money. We should really get away with it, do away with it entirely. It's just going to be used as an instrument to enslave as long as it's allowed. Maybe go back to barter again, but I think we live in a planet of abundance, and similar to the Star Trek TV show, there was never an exchange of money in any Star Trek show. You just said, oh, I feel like a chocolate shake, and it would just materialize and come out. You never saw anybody putting coins in there, or Captain Kirk paying anybody off to come to their planet. Certainly not. And that's humans 300 years from now. That is supposed to be us. Right. And you know, and I know that our Star Trek future has been hijacked because that technology already exists. Right. But it's been so locked up and bottled in these black projects that ordinary people have no access to it even existing.
Exactly. Yeah, the multi-layers of the secret space programs, the sort of cover facades of, like NASA, and I know, there are some psyops though, that when there is an awakening, there's like a psyop sometimes introduced. And I don't know what your thoughts are about flat Earth, but that, could be, to me, kind of more of a distraction. And like when people ask me, what do you think about flat Earth and this and that, I'm like, whether the Earth is rectangular, square, flat, it's like, that's not my biggest priority right now. It's like, but a lot of the people that have been in these projects and programs say it's not flat. And all the people coming forward that have been in the 20 and backs, I mean, and there are a lot of them. And I'm, again, like the list that you shared, it's not listening to the ones that are telling these kind of stories, and the competition or the inner kind of censorship that we see in the community as well, and where plants or compromised people have been making it very difficult to get these messages out without there being lawsuits and some sort of weird dynamic. But that's a whole other thing we could get into. But it's wild. It's like exactly what you're saying. These higher advanced technologies have been kept from us. There have been these secret space programs. They have hoarded the technologies. And like you said, humor. I wanted to do like a show called Levity Rules with a friend of mine, where we kind of make fun of it, even though a lot of it's not funny because, you know, children being trafficked and the pedophilia part, there's nothing to laugh at about that. But, you know, kind of like, you like the show Hoarders. It's like, you know, knocking on the Buckingham Palace, like, you're hoarding all this wealth. It's like, why do even these people look up to these creatures or whatever they are? But yeah, so once we get in touch with this greater technology, we're also going to remember, which you're talking about it and I talk about a lot, is we're an advanced technology when we start to switch on the DNA. So there can be that Star Trek thing, but there's also moving into higher earth energies and restoring of the tree of life template in our own DNA, switching on these dormant strands where we can experience abundance without the money system. So when people are afraid to let go of that paycheck or that career, where they're willing to participate in these hospital death camps that we're seeing, and all these, you know, narratives that are separating families and keeping people isolated because of how they're playing out this particular, you know, what we've been dealing with the last 2 years. I don't have to say it out loud, but that we'll begin to understand that the planetary consciousness and the planet itself is an ascension planet. So people can let go and start to understand how to work more closely with the earth, not necessarily in a primitive way that we've seen in our like history, but like something like beyond that, where the elemental kingdoms are rising, where what we saw in Lemuria and Atlantis and some of these more advanced civilizations can like begin to rise again, where, wow, our relationship with animals and nature and abundance is a soul-centered spiritual divine birthright that we can wake up to, instead of, oh wow, do we have to fear poverty and starvation? Not if we're inventive, not if we are resourceful, and not if we are willing to connect with the very planetary consciousness that can really pull us out of it and really collapse that Saturn moon matrix, because all these dark technologies rely on us as a vampiric system to siphon from us. There would be no artificial timeline unless we are feeding it, because the deep state cabal has no real power. It's not the powers that be, it's stolen power. What it's siphoned, stolen. So when we call that power back, we starve that beast, right? So talk to us about that. Like, you know, once we break that agreement and connection and stop voting these individuals in or stuck in that dependency, that's the huge breakthrough. And there's nothing to fear, because it's a great reunion of remembering who we truly are, because the greatest conspiracy is making us small, to the point where when anything fearful happens, we have to hand our power to somebody else solving it, instead of tapping into the awakening that has to like be from within. That awakening, like a person would have to do if they're with a narcissist or abuser. Wake up to the fact that you don't need to be messed with in your mind, because on a human level, all these mind control programs have stepped down into human dynamics, to the point where we're dealing with it very up close and personal. And once we achieve it on the micro level, we can begin to influence the collective to tap into this greater resource of our divine potential. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the human race is very dynamic, and all humans are on a trajectory of evolution. Back to animals are evolving. Everything wants to do better each lifetime, each year of your life, if you're following your life path. And I think each one of us has one, and it's about as individual as your fingerprint. We will ascend together in this scenario because the human spirit is so strong, and because we want to be free. Liberty and justice are ingrained in any free thinking person. Look, there's still a lot of suffering, human slavery, trafficking, so many terrible, awful things that are going on. And it's often humans doing it to humans. There's so much trauma that has been built up. It's no wonder that fear is the emanating emotion of the human race out to those extraterrestrials, ultra dimensionals that can sense this, that know that we are going, it is trauma-based mind control is what we have collectively been put under. So once the programming ends, and you mentioned Stockholm Syndrome, the way a captive person, a kidnapped person like Patty Hearst eventually started to side with her captors to the point where she was helping them rob banks and was one of the Symbolize liberation warriors. And of course, that whole thing went down, but it was a good example of how we can be kidnapped because our free will can be hijacked from us. And if you're kidnapped, let's face it, what are you going to do if you're locked in a cage or a closet and you can't get out? You have to survive. And all life survives. All life wants to survive. Look at a tree clinging to a cliff face. What does it take for that organism to continue on day after day? And people get depressed, and animals get depressed too. But I think it's because we're not being given the opportunity to be liberated, to be the free, sovereign human beings. We were born, our birthright dictates that we are allowed to live, breathe, drink fresh water, eat fresh food. It's your birthright. It's a natural law that you have the right to these things. Nobody should ever feel guilty about just existing because you're here and every person is part of this. Every person is part of the plan. Whether you know it or not, I hope you start to know it and start to wake up because we're all in this together, people, and we want to get to that Star Trek future. Otherwise, it is an age of tyranny with AI and being chipped and monitored, the Orwellian worst dystopian nightmare you could ever imagine. And then our Star Trek future would be like Avatar, the movie, where the corporations going out to exploit planets and humans and their technology toys are really the bad guys. Of course, you and I are friends with Alex Collier, and we had great FaceTime with him at the Mount Shasta Summer Conference last year, and will again this year, everybody. While tickets are still available, get up there for that. Laura, myself, and Alex will all be there. And I've been following Alex Collier for decades, and he has really outlined it so much for us, and he would echo all of our sentiments tonight that humanity is at a crossroads. We're at the opportunity where we can shake the yoke here and go on timeline one. Because according to Alex Collier, and I get into the timelines and different circumstances if we go down different paths, but according to Alex Collier, we have already played out the lockdown Earth phase, the prison planet, all the way to the nth degree, to the point where humans became a menace in the universe and became disrupting other advanced civilizations, including the Andromedeans, who he has had contact with. And they had to come back in time. And this is when it gets pretty complicated. But if you can imagine we can travel through space, we can also travel through time. It's quite a paradox. But if you come back, you have to be very careful not to be changing things too much, because you could very well get stuck in the timeline if you do. It's the whole, if I come back and kill my grandfather, I don't exist in the future. Well, then you don't go back to the future. You stay in the timeline where you killed your grandfather. But the point is, the Andromedeans identified a huge amount of tyranny that came out of Earth starting on 9/11 and realized this was the starting point, the great deception of the globalists to instigate this New World Order plan and to get us all chipped. Like Aaron Russo said to Alex Jones years ago in an interview, he was the director of Trading Places. He said the plan was to get every single human chipped, and everybody thought, okay, they're going to put it in our hand. It'll be the mark of the beast. Now we see it taking different forms. But Laura, the only way they can control us with technology is either a chip in the body or this thing. That's the only way they can track you. And if you turn it off, if you don't use it, if you put it in a Faraday bag, as the way I travel with my laptop, and if I needed to keep myself private, put it in a Faraday bag. Nobody can trace you. So if you take away the tools that they're using to enslave us and don't accept that proverbial mark of the beast, that is how you can resist this juggernaut, which has so much control and money and guns and everything else, that really the only way we can compete and survive to get us to this golden age is non-compliance. We don't take a part in their corrupt system. We don't accept that chip and the tattoo on the forehead and all these things. Isn't it amazing? I'm no biblical scholar, but isn't it amazing how many things are really starting to come true and very clear that a lot of this has been foreseen? You know, I did Leo Zagami's published his first five books in the English language, starting with the last Pope. I cannot tell you how many things he has predicted in that book from 2014, including what happened in Kazakhstan, in that city Astana, which nobody had ever heard about, is the weirdest city in the world, according to CNN Travel, that they have all these obelisks and domes and all this religious motif. And then they just had a coup that bounced their government out of office about a month and a half ago, because they said, you can't even go to a bank and take out your own money unless you had the passport thing. And that's what really set people over the edge. And we're seeing it happening in Canada, Australia, other countries where this lockdown tyranny has just gone too far, and people just aren't going to take it anymore, and nor should they.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the real thing that hits home, on top of the fact that all that should hit home, is when children are being snatched, you know, in airports, or the CDC coming and being like, Stu Peters has done such an amazing job, and he just keeps whipping stuff out. He shared today this little baby that was taken away from his parents, held in the CDC sort of faculty in that particular region, and won't let the parents have anything to do with the child because it hadn't gotten the you-know-what. And they just created or spun a narrative where, oh, the parents are the abusers. You know, and we see like law enforcement, and we see the way that society is structured and the judicial system to go after people for these, you know, so-called crimes, but they're the biggest criminals of all. And they are responsible and connected to the most horrific crimes against humanity. Yeah, people really, the phone, turn off your TV, like get your creative power back, because their tactic is to infect our creative channels to the point where we enable the very things we don't want because we believe it, and we believe that they're going to solve it. And it goes into also what we might see in disclosure, where the problem reaction solution comes down to maybe a fake alien invasion and a benevolent group showing up and being like, oh, we're going to help you with this. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, I can't get over every day that I wake up, even though I'm used to this. I've been doing this work for a while. I was kind of like tapping into it even as a child, like this mission, whatever, seeing through the programmings, understanding a portion of it, but not to the degree I do now. But I know that's like a bunch of questions in one, and I haven't even like asked a question, but you know what I mean? Like anything you want to share?
Well, you and I have met a lot of the super soldiers and people involved in the 20 and back in the secret space program. You invited me to hear Corey Goode talk to Linda Moulton Howe, my first contact in the desert, when he was kind of coming on the scene. Whether you like him or don't, he's not the only one. And James Rink is going to be at the conference I'll be at this weekend in Sedona, as long as Michael Jacobs had memories of 20 and back. And they swipe people's memories. Captain Randy Kramer lives down in near Sedona as well, and I've had many one-on-ones talks with him and read his book about his time off planet. I cover it in Beyond Esoteric and Alternative 1, 2, 3, as we've mentioned in the show tonight. Alternative 3 is humans moving off planet. And I know you've had experiences being recruited in some of these programs.
Yeah, right.
So this is all part of the great revealing here, that we're going to learn that we've had humans off planet living in the moon bases and in Mars in what Richard Dolan's described as a breakaway civilization. So now we have humans who are living off planet, even having children, multiplying off planet. They're still us, they're still humans. Yeah. In a way, we have a connection with them because we are all of the human race. Right. Just in the same way that we have a connection with the last of the uncontacted tribes in the Amazon and Papua New Guinea. They're still human beings like we are, but they live in the Stone Age. So what I'm really curious to see when we have this 100th monkey effect, when the light bulb just goes off in humanity, that it would affect everyone. And because we're all evolving, even the pygmies of Papua New Guinea or deep into the Amazon jungle will just start knowing things that their predecessors never imagined. They'll just have an insight into these things, and maybe they will have a visualization of the breakaway civilization, be like, our people are up there in the stars. And it's quite conceivable because just like animals have a form of communication, even telepathy, that we don't have, but maybe we do have, and we're still working that out and trying to flex our muscles a little bit. I mean, wouldn't it be great if, say, we went to kindergarten and we started to learn about the body chakras, and then in first grade, we started doing telepathic communications, and by third grade, we were bending spoons with telekinesis, and by fifth grade, astral traveling off planet and so forth. I mean, this is the kind of reconceptualizing education that could be happening in future generations when we do play catch up to these very human-like benevolent ETs who have had a part in Earth's history. Yeah, we all know that the visitations is not an unusual thing, that it's been ongoing for quite a long time, and they're all watching to see the Earth show and see if us humans are really going to remember who we are and our incredible potential to decalcify our pineal gland, for one, and have this ability to start perceiving in our fifth and sixth sense. And this is when it starts getting really good. This is when humanity wakes up, and again, we're all part of it. So enjoy the show, everyone, because you're one of the participants.
Dang, that was just like mic drop. So amazing. Yeah, and it's going to take teachers and doctors to say, I am not going to participate in this system that is threatening me, trying to control me, that we come together and build communities where all those abilities and skills that a person has, you know, a doctor, a teacher, they have skills, but can you maintain those skills without the infection of these indoctrination programs or these threats or this concern that you're not going to get your next paycheck? How are you going to take care of your family? That's why I'm trying to build a healing center, like a transition place for people so that they can take a breath, figure out their next step, and really build community and link up with other people around the world that are willing to do the same thing. And as we see, you know, doctors and experts that are calling this stuff out, the censorship stuff. But like what you were saying, it's like, imagine our science being about the 15-dimensional time matrix, or what our junk DNA truly is, and removing the whole dead science thing and talking about free energy, right? I mean, our school systems and the way that we guide, you know, the youth is going to be to provide that, but at the same time, see these children as our guides as well, you know, and really empowering the star seeds instead of drugging them with like Ritalin and whatever drug. I was definitely like carried that stigma for a little while. It's like, oh, Laura's learning disabilities. It's just like, you know what? I don't know if that gets censored. No, it's like, I'm like, yeah, I couldn't grok it, you know, but if I had a cool enough teacher, I'd maybe get a good grade, but I just went into wilderness, stuff and went into the wilderness for a long time. And, that really, I feel like if I hadn't done that, I don't know where I'd be today. I mean, the heavy forces and the targeting were like too much. And like you mentioned, the alternative 3, they wanted to take me off planet. They presented it as a positive thing to protect me, need to protect the human genome and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's when I really started to understand the kind of stuff that you bring up. And it's just incredible, you guys. I mean, you know, it's just like unbelievable. Like, I mean, I could talk to you forever, and I know we've been on for a while, but just how you became that kind of child that could go there, you know? Like, can you just maybe give us a little bit on that? And then we'll probably have to wrap it up.
Sure.
It's very
yeah,
hard
well,
to say goodbye. It's like such
yeah.
a, but I mean, like, how did Brad Olsen end up like literally having one of the greatest manuals of all time to point out all this madness?
I wouldn't have known it as a kid. But what I did know as a kid, and I mentioned this to George Norrie on his Beyond Belief show on Gaia last year, that when I was a kid, I just couldn't believe that we weren't living in a utopia civilization. And as a young kid going into some of the ghetto neighborhoods of Chicago with my grandfather, we'd ride the L train around. I just loved doing that with him, and just seeing why do people live that way? Why are these drug addicts or drunks on the street? I can't imagine how we could let ourselves go like that. So I guess it's always been instilled in me that there has to be a better way, that we're smart enough. Humans can do this. We can figure this out. We can work together. Nobody gets left in the cracks, because look, we're only as great as the very weakest link among us. So you know how great the human race is? 20% of us are going to go to sleep malnourished or starving tonight. Way to go, human race. You really looked after everybody. You really showed up to bring everybody up. And that's what it's going to take. That's what I do believe the ETs are watching to see. Are you going to do it? Are you going to leave anybody behind? Are you going to make it worse for them? Are you going to lock them down even tighter in this prison planet? No, we're sovereign. We deserve to be free, and we have free will to make those choices. But people have to know what they're up against, and they have to know this kind of information that has been withheld from us, because all that has been hidden will be revealed. And it already is. And Laura, look, I got to tip my hat to you, because you have been very instrumental and very influential in helping people on their journeys as well. And I'll tell you, there are great rewards. When I was an English teacher in Japan, and I have traveled the world, I've been to all 7 continents. I'm very, very grateful for that opportunity. But when I was in Japan, I was kind of right out of college and going out drinking and dating my students and this and that. And one time in an English lab, I had an elderly man, and he was so reverent to me, and I couldn't understand why. And I asked him one day, and he goes, "Well, you are a sensei," which is teacher in Japanese. And he said, "In the Eastern cultures, we revere teachers very highly. You're up there with doctors and lawyers and pilots, because you are instilling your wisdom and your knowledge to other people. And us in the East, we take that very seriously, and we think that that is a sacrifice that you make to be a teacher." And I'll never forget that, because if you have the ability to be an author, a speaker, even a musician, an artist, a way to express yourself, because it's all part of the whole. You know, we've got so many truth tellers and so many ways that disclosure is coming through. And sometimes it is the poets and the painters that make the great breakthroughs, or you create a meme that goes viral, and it just helps people understand a sometimes prickly situation. I guess that's been my journey here, Laura, is just I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And I know that this is something that I'm working on a personal karmic level. I've had past life recalls, and I've known I've killed people, and I've done terrible things in past lives. And this is my escape from Prison Planet by doing all this. And that is why I am in service to all. And I just want this to be my gift to humanity. And, you know, there are ways to read my book for free. You can go on cccpublishing.com, and I have the Google Book app, and don't think it's about money, but these things do cost something to produce. And that's the world we live in. Until it can be given away for free, this is how I make my living, and you too.
Exactly.
So those of you out there that support Laura's work, you sure have to buy her new book coming out next year by CCC Publishing. And it's going to be a good one. I know you, Laura. You're going to pack it full of great information.
Oh, thank you, Brad. It means so much. Thank you for just the willingness to publish this. I'm really excited. It's 13 chapters right now, over 300 pages. I mean, it's just like, you know, and it's been such a process. It's brought up so much for me, and trying to weave it together in the same way I connect dots, in the way that I present things. But yeah, there are going to be 2 other books. So I'm planting a lot of seeds in the first one, but still going into great detail. But man, your service to humanity is so huge. You are such a blessing to humanity. You're such a freaking super amazing friend and awesome person. Just like, I mean, it just you on a personality, sort of like super cool, like you rock level is one part of it. And then it's just like, look at all that you've done. And let's kind of wrap it up with this. So your recent trip to Antarctica, like you've been sharing information about that. Like, tell us a little bit about, I could talk to you forever. I'm so sorry. Your latest adventures, you know, you as a world traveler, like going to Antarctica, right? Like,
yeah, 3 years ago, just a little over 3 years ago, I got off a sailboat from 26 days going down there, and that was the 7th continent to visit. But I think I was the only researcher I know in our field that went down there to really give a hard look at all these questions that we have from being a flat earth. And next week I'm doing a preliminary interview with Flat Earth Dave, who has offered a bounty for anyone who can prove the earth is round. So we'll see if he'll take
okay. And are you one of the ones that are going to
round earth, of course. I mean,
What's
I've
that?
been around the world at the equatorial level.
Right.
My first 3-year trip around the world, I've been to within a couple degrees of the North Arctic Circle and within 1 degree of the Antarctic Circle. So I've been north, south, and all the way around. And look, every planet is a sphere and does rotate around. Why does Mars have a polar ice cap on the northern and southern hemispheres, just like Earth? So maybe I'll win that bounty from Flat Earth Dave. We'll see.
Oh, I bet. Or he'll be so challenged, he might just like say, the tech issues, we can't. Well, I know there's sometimes interference. No, I'm not saying anything like weird about him. I don't even know him.
It was a great trip to Antarctica, as you know, and my former partner, 𝗦𝘆Infinity, you know, is a friend. And so we had a great trip, and we still reminisce about that. And she may make an appearance at the Shasta conference. So hopefully Kevin will come down with you too, and we'll just have a big old reunion.
Yeah, I think it's probably just going to be me. And there's many reasons for that. We just have a little small farm here and 3 kids, and two of them are mine that are twins that are 23 now.
Yeah, wow.
But yeah, I can't wait. And it's so cool that, you know, you guys did that. And any final thoughts, anything that you want to share before we close? And there was one more thing I wanted to bring in, but I'm like so just in awe and, you know, just so grateful for your geniusness on a spiritual and human level, and just boom, really cool, everything you shared. So any like final thoughts that you want to share before we go?
Well, you're so very kind, Laura. And I'm like Jordan Maxwell, and I gave the introduction to his birthday, and he's often saying, I'm just an ordinary guy who got very interested in extraordinary ideas and concepts and information. And I feel like I'm the same way. 2 days ago, I was skiing Snow Basin, doing what I love to do. And now I'm traveling down to Sedona and speaking at a conference this weekend. So really, you know, thank you for the compliments. And I do the best I can do. And I want to bring out the best in other people too. But I just feel like I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm just another American traveler. I'm not really recognized, but that's fine. I'm not in this to get famous. Now, I'd like to get a nice house in Lake Tahoe and manifest my vision of how I'm going to live Act 3. You know, every 28 years is our solar return. Just turned 56. So here I am in Act 3.
God, I would never.
I feel this is going to be the best.
Dang, man. That, I mean, come on, guys, right? When you connect with the truth frequency, guess how young you look at that. That's shocking. That's incredible. Awesome. Well, I can't wait to see you at these upcoming conferences. I'm really bummed. I was going to go to the Sedona one, and it's just the timing of everything is just not. I wanted to do like through Zoom or Skype and still do a presentation, but anyway, I look forward to seeing you in Shasta, and always love the adventures that this all is, and the ones that I'm able to create with you, you're like near and dear to my heart and soul, and I so love you. And thank you, everybody. Check this out. I'll put the links in. It's a live, right? So just give me a little time to get all his links in. And Brad, man, I mean, if you're just like, you know, just a regular guy, you know, everybody who feels like a regular person, you know what, you can be extraordinary, like Brad, you know. And it's not about comparisons either. Just get that curiosity. Know that when you have anxiety or depression, it has a message. Explore it so that you can find your deep inner calling. Because like you said, and I say a lot, I mean, we all have this great divine purpose. Don't give that power away to anybody else. Let those adversities and those triggers and that pain or that confusion guide you into a breakthrough that will help you to uncover all the stuff that we've been kept from. And we're going to work together. And I'm grateful you're one of the best allies and friends. So thank you for being here. And that's my final thoughts. And if you have any I know I already asked you if any final thoughts,
well,
but it's like we can't get enough of you here. So
that's so kind of you. Well, just want to give a big shout out to
being kind, I'm just being honest. So go ahead. Yeah.
Just give a shout out to my host here in Big Waters, Utah, right by the Lake Powell and Page, Arizona. I'm at the Liberty Vacation Rentals with my good buddy.
Hi, everybody.
Adam
One more
Baum.
appearance here. I had the Adam Baum show on Santa Maria Community Television a long time ago, so I got the moniker Adam Baum. But I directed for my dad for a while.
Hollywood guy.
𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, WAGENER, on the local channels. More people were watching him during primetime hours than were watching NBC. NBC offered him a contract with muzzle control. Don't talk about 9/11. Don't talk about Obama. Don't talk about the IRS. He's like, no, I'm going to stay on public access. So you could look up On Second Thought with 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. I'm his son. So
we got some media celebrityhood. Check out libertyvacationrentals.com if you're passing through this area. Gorgeous area.
No S, just Liberty Vacation Rentals.
He gave me a great tour of the Grand Canyon and the bridge and all that stuff. Yeah. Slot Canyon and so forth. Of course, you can find me, bradolsen.com or CCC Publishing. If you want to get a signed copy of my book, they'll come through my office so I can sign that for people.
And
but
again,
thanks so much for having us on, Laura.
Oh, absolutely.
You're so awesome. I really always enjoy our conversations.
Oh, thank you so much. And again, guys, this is one book of 10. All right. Oh. Check this dude out. I love you both. Really great to meet you, Adam. Have a great night, you guys. Thanks for tuning in.